I'm 79 years old, and 2 years ago, I did something that made everyone think I'd lost my mind. I sold everything I owned, the house I'd lived in for 40 years, the furniture my grandmother left me, the china I'd been collecting since 1968, the books, the clothes, the kitchen gadgets, the photo albums, the jewelry, all of it, gone. My daughter Jennifer thought I was having a breakdown. My son Michael threatened to have me declared incompetent. My friends from the bridge club stopped calling. And you know what? I didn't care, because for the first time in my entire life, I was about to figure out what actually mattered. My name is Dorothy Ann Chen, and I'm going to tell you about the only 12 things I kept when I sold everything. Not because they're valuable, not because they're sentimental, but because in 79 years of living, these are the only things that turned out to be essential, the only things that actually matter when you strip away all the noise and the nonsense and the stuff we spend our whole lives accumulating. And if you're smart, you'll start building your life around these 12 things now, before you waste 60 years like I did collecting things that meant absolutely nothing. It was March 2023. I was 77 years old. My husband Richard had been dead for 3 years. Heart disease, slow and ugly, the kind that takes you piece by piece until there's nothing left. I'd nursed him through it, watched him disappear, held his hand when he took his last breath. After he died, I stayed in our house in Pasadena. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2,800 square feet of space I didn't need filled with things I didn't use. Everyone said that was normal. Everyone said I needed time. So I stayed. But the house felt like a museum. Every room was a shrine to a life I wasn't living anymore. Richard's office, exactly as he left it. The guest rooms we'd prepared for grandchildren who never visited. The formal dining room where we'd hosted exactly 3 dinner parties in 20 years. The garage full of equipment for hobbies I'd abandoned decades ago. I had 40 years of accumulation, closets full of clothes I'd worn once or never, drawers full of kitchen gadgets still in their packaging, boxes in the attic I hadn't opened in 15 years. I had 6 sets of dishes. 6. Why did I have 6 sets of dishes? One night I was watching some documentary about minimalism. These young people in their 30s talking about how freeing it was to own less. And I remember thinking, what idiots, wait until you're my age. Wait until you have a lifetime of things. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. I started looking around my house with new eyes, really looking, and I realized something that made me feel sick. I couldn't remember the last time I'd used most of this stuff. I couldn't remember the last time any of it had brought me joy. I was living in a warehouse, not a home. I called my sister Margaret. She was 74, living in a retirement community in Arizona, sharp as ever despite the Parkinson's that was slowly taking her mobility. Maggie, I said, if your house burned down tomorrow, what would you actually miss? She was quiet for a long time. Then she said something I'll never forget. Dorothy, I've been in this tiny apartment for 2 years. I brought 10 boxes of stuff with me from my house. You know how many I've opened? 2. I don't even remember what's in the other 8. So what do you use? I asked. My phone, my reading glasses, my coffee maker, my favorite blanket. That's about it, she said. Everything else is just there, taking up space, making me feel guilty for not using it. That conversation planted something in my brain, a question I couldn't shake. What do I actually need? Not what do I think I need, not what I've been told I need, not what I might need someday. What do I actually genuinely use and need right now? I spent 2 weeks taking inventory. I put a small piece of masking tape on every single item I used, every single one. The coffee cup I drank from, the sweater I wore, the book I read, the pan I cooked with, everything. After 2 weeks, I walked through my house and looked at what I'd marked. Out of thousands of items, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff, I'd actually used maybe 3% of it. 3%. I'd spent 60 years accumulating things I didn't use, working jobs I didn't love to buy things I didn't need to impress people I didn't like. I'd filled my life with stuff to avoid the terrifying question of what actually mattered. That's when I decided I was going to sell it all, keep only what I truly needed, and figure out what the hell I'd been doing with my life. Jennifer came over when I told her my plan. She was 52, living in San Diego, working 60-hour weeks at a job that was slowly killing her. She looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Mom, you can't sell the house. This is our family home. It's a building, I said. It's not our family. What about all of Dad's things? She asked, and her voice cracked. What about them? I said gently. Having his old golf clubs in the garage doesn't bring him back, sweetheart. It just reminds me he's gone. She started crying. I don't understand what's happening to you. I'm waking up, I said, and I've got maybe 10 good years left if I'm lucky. I'm not spending them being a custodian for stuff that doesn't matter. You're 77 years old, she said. Where are you even going to go? I don't know yet, I said, and that's the most exciting thing I've felt in 20 years. She left angry, didn't call for weeks. But I'd made up my mind. I hired an estate sale company. I called a realtor, and I started the painful process of sorting through 4 decades of accumulation. Here's what I learned. Letting go of things is letting go of the person you thought you were supposed to be. I had a closet full of cocktail dresses, expensive ones. I'd worn them to maybe a dozen events over 30 years, hated every single one, but kept buying them because that's what successful women were supposed to wear. I sold every single one. I had boxes of china from my wedding. 55 years I'd owned that china. You know how many times I'd used it? Maybe 20, maybe. But I'd moved it from house to house, stored it carefully, worried about it breaking. It sold for $400. 40 years of worry for $400. I had Richard's collection of vintage cameras. He'd loved photography, spent thousands on equipment he barely used. After he died, I couldn't get rid of them because it felt like erasing him. But keeping them didn't bring him back. It just made me sad every time I saw them. I donated them to a photography school. Let someone who actually loved cameras love those cameras. I had books I'd kept since college, first editions, rare editions. Books I'd never reread, would never reread, but kept because they made me look intellectual. They sold in 2 hours. The process took 8 months. Every day I'd go through another closet, another drawer, another box. Every day I'd face another version of myself I'd tried to be and failed. The gourmet cook with the professional-grade kitchen equipment, the artist with the expensive supplies, the gardener with the tools, the hostess with the entertaining pieces. None of those people were me. They were performances, costumes I'd tried on and never quite fit into. And slowly, as I stripped away all the stuff, I started to see what was actually essential, what actually mattered, what I actually needed to live a real life instead of a perform one. By the time I was done, I'd narrowed it down to 12 things, 12 categories of possessions that were genuinely essential. Everything else was noise. The house sold in June 2023. I moved into a 600-square-foot apartment in Santa Monica. Walking distance to the beach, big windows, room for exactly what I needed and nothing more. My children thought I'd made a terrible mistake. My friends were horrified. My financial advisor said I was being reckless, but for the first time in my adult life, I felt like I could breathe. So here they are, the only 12 things that matter, the only 12 things I kept, the only 12 things you actually need. Number 1, a way to capture and access knowledge. I kept my laptop and my phone. That's it. No filing cabinets full of papers I'd never look at again. No shelves of reference books I could find online in 3 seconds. No notebooks full of information I'd already forgotten. But here's what people get wrong about this. It's not about the devices. It's about understanding that in 2025, knowledge is free and infinite. What matters is your ability to access it and use it. I spent 40 years accumulating books because I thought that made me educated. But I'd read maybe 10% of them. The rest just sat there making me feel guilty and inadequate. Now I have a library card and a Kindle. I read more than I ever did when I had 2,000 books. Because I'm not reading to perform being well read. I'm reading because I actually want to learn. If you're hoarding information in physical form, you're not preserving knowledge. You're building a monument to your insecurity. Let it go. Number 2. Something that keeps you physically capable. I kept my walking shoes and a set of resistance bands. That's it. No home gym, no expensive equipment, no Peloton, no yoga mat collection. Your body is the only thing you truly own, the only thing you can't replace, and it will decay whether you like it or not. The question is whether you help it or hurt it. I spent my 40s and 50s joining gyms I never went to, buying equipment I never used, telling myself I'd start tomorrow. I wasted thousands of dollars on fitness theater. Now I walk an hour every day. I do resistance training 3 times a week in my living room. I'm in better shape at 79 than I was at 59. You don't need equipment, you need commitment. Stop buying things that make you feel like you're taking care of yourself and actually take care of yourself. Number 3, tools for creative expression. I kept my mother's old fountain pen and a leather-bound journal. That's it. No art supplies, no craft materials, no unfinished projects mocking me from the closet. I'd spent decades collecting hobbies, watercolor sets, scrapbooking supplies, a pottery wheel I used twice. I thought having the equipment meant I was creative, but creativity isn't about supplies. It's about actually creating. Now I write every morning, longhand with my mother's pen, thoughts, observations, memories, whatever comes, no agenda, no performance, just me and the page. It's the most creative I've ever been, because I'm not trying to be an artist. I'm just trying to be honest. If you have supplies for hobbies you don't actually do, you don't have hobbies. You have guilt taking up space in your closet. Number 4, a single set of dishes and cooking tools that you actually use. I kept 8 pieces, 2 plates, 2 bowls, 2 mugs, 1 pot, 1 pan. Everything else sold. For 40 years, I had service for 12. Multiple sets. China for special occasions, everyday dishes, serving platters, specialty cookware. You know how many people I cooked for on a regular basis? 2. Me and Richard. And after he died, 1. I was keeping all that stuff for someday, for when the kids visited, for when I hosted dinner parties, for when life looked the way I thought it was supposed to look. But someday never came. The kids didn't visit, the dinner parties didn't happen, and I spent 40 years washing dishes I never used and storing cookware that mocked my lonely table. Now I cook simple meals with simple tools, and you know what? The food tastes better, because I'm not performing domesticity. I'm just feeding myself with care. Stop keeping things for the life you wish you had. Live the life you actually have. Number 5, clothing that fits your real life, not your fantasy life. I kept 7 outfits. That's it. 7. 2 pairs of jeans, 3 comfortable shirts, 1 dress, 1 sweater. Everything else sold or donated. I had a closet the size of a bedroom, hundreds of items. Clothes for the person I used to be, clothes for the person I thought I'd become, clothes for occasions that never happened, sizes from 6 to 14 because I kept thinking I'd lose the weight, styles from 3 decades because maybe they'd come back. I was keeping a wardrobe for a woman who didn't exist, and every time I opened that closet, I felt like a failure. Now I have exactly what I need for my actual life. I'm 79. I walk on the beach. I write in coffee shops. I have lunch with friends. I don't need cocktail dresses. I don't need power suits. I don't need any of it. You know what I need? Comfort, confidence, clothes that fit the person I actually am. If you haven't worn it in a year, you're never wearing it again. You're just storing regret. Number 6, 1 meaningful piece of jewelry. I kept my wedding ring, that's it. Not because I'm still married to a dead man, but because it reminds me that I was loved and that I loved back, and that's real, even though he's gone. I sold everything else. The pearls my mother gave me that I never wore. The diamond earrings Richard bought me for our 25th anniversary that hurt my ears. The costume jewelry I'd collected thinking it made me look put together. None of it meant anything. It was just stuff signaling to other people that I had worth. But my worth doesn't come from what I wear. It never did. 1 piece, 1 real piece. That's all you need. Everything else is performing value you already have. Number 7, photographs that actually matter. I kept 47 photographs out of thousands. 47. I spent weeks going through photo albums and boxes of pictures, and here's what I discovered. Most of my photos weren't capturing moments I loved. They were capturing moments I thought I should love. Family photos where we all looked miserable, but we were performing happiness. Vacation photos from trips I didn't enjoy, pictures of things I'd bought or places I'd been just to prove I'd been there. The 47 I kept are different. They're real. Richard laughing at something I said, his whole face lit up with genuine joy. My daughter at 6, covered in mud, completely herself before she learned to perform. My sister and me at 12 and 9, before life complicated everything. Those 47 photos tell the truth, the other thousands were lies. Stop photographing your life to prove you're living it, actually live it. Number 8, something that connects you to beauty. I kept a small painting, 8 by 10 inches. Nothing valuable. My sister painted it when she was 16. It's a sunrise over water, amateur and imperfect, and the most beautiful thing I own. I used to have art all over my walls, expensive pieces I bought because they looked sophisticated, because they impressed visitors, because they filled space. But this painting, this one makes me feel something. Every time I look at it, I remember my sister at 16, so full of hope and creativity before life made her practical. You need beauty in your life, real beauty that moves you, not decorator beauty that impresses people, not investment beauty that appreciates in value. Real beauty that makes you feel alive. One piece, that's all you need. Make it count. Number 9, tools for basic self-sufficiency. I kept a small toolkit, hammer, screwdriver set, pliers, measuring tape, flashlight. That's it. I used to have a garage full of tools Richard collected. Power tools, specialized equipment, things with names I didn't know. After he died, they just sat there reminding me I didn't know how to use them. But these basic tools, I use them constantly. Hanging pictures, tightening screws, fixing small things, being capable in my own space. Self-sufficiency isn't about having every tool for every job. It's about being resourceful with what you have. It's about not being helpless in your own home.